Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar News, where we bring you the latest updates and deep insights into both the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong. As always, we aim to deliver a clear and accurate picture of the currency landscape that's evolving rapidly across global financial markets. Today's discussion dives into recent economic developments that are reshaping perceptions of the Vietnamese dong and its position in the global economy. Vietnam's growing presence in international markets is playing a pivotal role in boosting the credibility and attractiveness of its national currency. Once considered a local or regional currency, the Vietnamese dong, VND, is now capturing attention as a serious contender in global portfolio diversification. Hedge funds and sovereign wealth entities are among those reevaluating the VND for its stability and strategic value. While Vietnam maintains a managed exchange rate system that restricts the dong from floating freely, this approach has historically offered a shield against speculative volatility. As of 2025, the dong generally hovers between 23,000 and 25,000 to the US dollar, a range closely maintained by the central bank. This stability creates a conducive environment for long-term planning and investment, particularly important for foreign enterprises entering the Vietnamese market. Vietnam's remarkable economic growth further fuels this currency strength, driven by a blend of export-led manufacturing, agricultural innovation, and a thriving tech sector. The country's GDP has consistently outperformed regional peers. Earlier this year, both the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund raised their projections for Vietnam's growth in 2025. This upward revision stems from global corporations diversifying operations away from China and investing heavily in Vietnam. The increase in foreign direct investment has led to a parallel rise in demand for the dong, boosting its standing in trade settlements and capital transactions. These flows not only signify confidence in Vietnam's macroeconomic management, but also reinforce the currency's resilience in global supply chains. Reinforcing this trajectory are moves from Vietnam's central bank that hint at growing institutional confidence in the currency. In the first quarter of 2025, the State Bank of Vietnam nudged the reference rate slightly upward, an adjustment seen as a symbolic nod to the dong's improving fundamentals. Meanwhile, the central bank is tactfully balancing inflation control with interest rate policy, all while channeling investments into digital banking infrastructure and transparent financial systems. Such reforms are cultivating a more appealing environment for institutional investors, while also making the Vietnamese dong more accessible for domestic and international use. The result is a national currency that's not just stable, but also increasingly functional for modern financial transactions. The Vietnamese financial landscape is experiencing a digital evolution. Over recent years, the adoption of digital wallets, mobile banking platforms, peer-to-peer payments, and blockchain technology has transformed how citizens, especially younger generations and small businesses, interact with money. This widespread integration is deepening the dong's role in the daily economic activity of the population. As more people move their finances into the formal banking sector, Vietnam's digital transformation is enhancing financial inclusion. The government's push toward digitization has resulted in more households holding bank accounts and transacting in dong, helping to elevate the currency's perceived legitimacy. This cultural and technological shift paves the way for the introduction of a central bank digital currency, tentatively referred to as the digital dong. The Digital Dong project, aimed at reaching underserved rural communities, could further strengthen the Vietnamese financial system. If implemented successfully, this initiative would place Vietnam among the leading nations in digital currency experimentation and rollout across Asia. Regionally, the VND is beginning to establish a notable presence. Financial institutions in countries such as Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia are offering increasingly favorable exchange rates for the dong. This growing acceptance allows for easier cross-border commerce and tourism, especially within Southeast Asia. In fact, even institutions in non-Asian markets, such as the UAE, Australia, and select countries in Europe, are beginning to incorporate the dong into investment products designed for high-net-worth clients. This reflects not only expanding economic ties, but also a recognition of the dong as a legitimate vehicle for global financial participation. Vietnam's economic integration with key players like China, South Korea, Japan, and Australia, under agreements such as the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, has also provided a major boost. The bilateral trade relationship between Vietnam and the United States has reached historic levels in 2025, underscoring the nation's strategic importance as a key production and export hub. This shift is further amplified by multinational firms relocating operations to Vietnam in response to rising costs and geopolitical instability in China. The inflow of capital from these moves continues to support the dong's rising prominence. To support its rising economic stature, Vietnam's foreign currency reserves have surged, reaching a record-breaking $120 billion, 0 cents, in early 2025. This substantial reserve gives the State Bank of Vietnam the firepower to maintain currency stability and intervene in foreign exchange markets if needed. It also acts as a buffer against global shocks, ensuring that inflationary pressures remain contained and investor trust stays strong. What's even more impressive is the change in how Vietnamese citizens now perceive and use their own currency. Just a decade ago, it was common for individuals to convert their savings into US dollars or gold, concerned about long-term instability. Today, that sentiment has largely reversed. More people are opting to save in dong-denominated accounts, purchase government bonds, and invest in real estate directly using the national currency. High-value real estate deals in major cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City are increasingly being finalized in Vietnamese dong, notable sign of the population's restored confidence. This internal trust is essential when citizens themselves choose to store, transact, and invest in their own currency. It reflects the strength and maturity of the monetary system. This economic transformation isn't limited to Vietnam's urban centers. Rural regions and smaller towns are also experiencing economic revitalization. Through government-backed programs aimed at expanding digital infrastructure and improving financial literacy, even remote areas are being integrated into the formal financial system. Mobile banking and app-based platforms are giving people easier access to loans, remittances, and savings tools. The rise of contactless payment methods and mobile-based remittance services is drawing millions of previously unbanked citizens into the formal economy. This not only empowers families and entrepreneurs, but also helps to create a more inclusive, transparent, and stable financial ecosystem nationwide. In May 2025, a major innovation came in the form of a blockchain-based remittance pilot program launched in Vietnamese dong. This project aims to make it cheaper and faster for overseas Vietnamese workers to send money home. Given that many low-income families in Vietnam rely on such remittances, this move represents a practical and humanitarian breakthrough, improving financial access for those who need it most. And currently, Vietnam's government has started formally reviewing frameworks for its proposed central bank digital currency. These forward-leaning steps indicate that Vietnam is not just catching up with global trends, it's preparing to lead in areas of financial innovation. On the institutional front, global perceptions of the Vietnamese dong are undergoing a radical shift. Once dismissed as illiquid and risky, the VND is now drawing attention from serious institutional investors seeking safer exposure to emerging markets. This new confidence is grounded in deliberate, disciplined governance and the implementation of modern regulatory frameworks. Rising foreign investment, a carefully managed currency regime, and transparent policy-making have positioned Vietnam favorably, though the government has made no official announcement regarding a currency revaluation. Several indicators, such as stronger capital inflows and a more optimistic policy environment, suggests that the groundwork is being laid for a future shift in valuation. However, Vietnam remains focused on the long game. Unlike countries that might be tempted to pursue short-term currency spikes, Vietnam's approach is measured and comprehensive. Its strategy intertwines infrastructure upgrades, international trade integration, monetary stability, and social inclusion. Major trade agreements with the United States, Japan, and the European Union have helped solidify Vietnam's economic foundation. At the same time, the government is continuing to improve its regulatory and governance standards. These efforts are narrowing the gap between Vietnam's domestic financial systems and global best practices, bringing the dong closer to full convertibility in the years ahead. What once seemed like a far-fetched goal is quickly becoming a reality. The Vietnamese dong, a currency that was once relegated to the fringes of global finance, is now a symbol of resilience, reform, and rising prosperity. As international banks, financial institutions, and policymakers keep a close watch, it's becoming increasingly evident that Vietnam's journey from a frontier market to a major economic player is well underway. The VND's evolving status in the global currency hierarchy is no longer a question of if, it's a matter of when. Stay tuned to Iraqi Dinar News for ongoing updates on the evolving financial landscape in Southeast Asia, and how developments with the Vietnamese dong and Iraqi dinar continue to shape investor expectations and opportunities worldwide.